Hello, welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you were watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. All right, so I've got an update coming out from Europe to share with all of you, and we're also going to talk about Ukraine in this video. And I want to dive more in depth and talk about the Paris summit that was being held today on talks with Ukraine. And multiple European leaders gathered today, as last week we had Emmanuel Macron, the French president, calling for an emergency summit to be held today on Monday. So I want to talk more about this and what came out of this conference, as we've been hearing two major things so far. One being security guarantees for Ukraine to ensure a lasting peace deal with Russia, and also security concerns for their own nations inside of Europe, as we've been hearing that Russia could potentially launch an attack onto Europe at a later date down the road. Europe wants to make sure that they are able to defend themselves, as recently we've been hearing that the US may not come to their aid and back them if they are attacked. Okay, so take a look at your screen here. Europe remains divided to send troops to Ukraine at emergency summit. European leaders met in Paris Monday to discuss what Europe can provide through possible negotiations over Ukraine, while appearing to be divided when it comes to sending troops. Okay, so that appears to be a big topic today. Some countries are willing to send troops into Ukraine as a peacekeeping force, but then again, there's some European leaders that are not willing to do so. Okay, so we're going to discuss some of the countries that are willing to do that. We talked about a few of them this morning. We know for sure the UK and also Sweden are open to doing so, and we're hearing that France potentially as well, maybe up to 10,000 troops might send. They might send their own forces into Ukraine as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into the news here. Let me start sharing all these details with you guys. So this is from Max 24. Paris summit will discuss what defense capabilities Europe could provide to give Ukraine credible security guarantees, including a plan for Ukraine to be given automatic NATO membership in the event of a clear ceasefire breach by Russia, according to The Guardian. Macron convenes European leaders for Ukraine summit amid tensions with the US. Okay, so this was that article coming out today on The Guardian. So here's some of the things they were talking about. Okay, so credible security guarantees for Ukraine. Make sure that they get good security guarantees from Europe to make sure that Russia cannot ever attack Ukraine down the road. And then also something big today is them talking about automatic NATO membership. Okay, we actually heard that coming out from Lindsey Graham, a senator from the U.S. He was just meeting with Zelenskyy recently as well, and he mentioned that, I think it was at the Munich Security Conference, he was stating that Ukraine should receive automatic NATO membership if they are attacked after a ceasefire deal is met, and if Russia decides to breach that deal in any way, they could get automatic NATO membership. So we'll see if that happens to be the case, but apparently they did discuss that today as well. Now, for more translated, the summit on security of Ukraine and Europe has already started in Paris. Among those present at the event are the heads of the government of Germany, United Kingdom, Italy, Poland, Spain, the Netherlands, and Denmark, as well as the president of the European Council, the president of the European Commission, and the Secretary General of NATO. Okay, so as we can see here, lots of top leaders inside of Europe met today in Paris. Here's a couple photos coming out from that area as well. Here's Emmanuel Macron and Ursula von der Leyen right here. A few more photos for you. Emmanuel Macron here once again. And also there's Donald Tusk right here meeting with Emmanuel Macron. And one more photo for you guys. Even German Chancellor Olaf Scholz was there today. Okay, so lots of top leaders in the West showed up to meet today to talk about security guarantees on Ukraine. Okay, so here's an update from Keir Starmer. This is why I'm in Paris today, okay? So he's the UK Prime Minister. Here's a quick update coming out from him, and he's going to talk about why he showed up at the Paris summit today talking about Ukraine. Take a look at this.
I'm here in Paris about to meet other European leaders to talk about defence and security in Ukraine. If there is a peace deal, and everybody wants a peace deal, then it's got to be a lasting peace deal, not just a pause for Putin to come again. So that needs to be discussed. There's also a wider piece here, which is the collective security and defence in Europe. And here, I think we've got a generational challenge. We've all got to step up in terms of capability and what we do as Europeans. And that's certainly the case, the message, the argument that I'll be making. I'm here in Paris.
Okay, so as we can see here directly from the UK Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, he's stating that two major things are being talked about at this conference. Okay, number one being credible security guarantees for Ukraine to make sure Russia does not come back and attack Ukraine again. And then also talking about their own security, okay, and what Europe needs to do to step up in terms of defense to protect their own nations if they ever come under attack by Russia in the future. So now moving on to next up, Europe divided over sending troops to Ukraine, reports the Financial Times. Leaders of major European countries have gathered in Paris to hammer out their own security strategy as U.S. representatives prepare to begin talks with Russia to resolve the military conflict in Ukraine without European participation. At a meeting in Paris, European leaders discussed the possibility of deploying troops to Ukraine amid Trump's ongoing peace negotiations with Russia. So here's the different positions from different countries that talked about whether they're willing to send troops to Ukraine or not. So France said President Macron proposed creating security forces along the future ceasefire line, avoiding direct engagement on the front lines. Okay, so we talked about that a little bit this morning, actually. I let you guys know that in an earlier update today that Europe was preparing to send some troops, potentially up to 30,000 to Ukraine. And if they were to do that, they would be most likely on the back end of Ukraine, probably in like Western Ukraine, as kind of like a show of force, but not necessarily be on the front lines to ensure the stability of the demarcation line if that happens to be created on the eastern side of Ukraine. To kind of, I guess, kind of put these troops out of harm's way, but at the same time still be in Ukraine is kind of how I see that as a show of force to Putin. Then also from the United Kingdom, Prime Minister Starmer stated that the UK is ready and willing to send troops if necessary. Okay, so UK is willing to send troops into Ukraine. Poland said Prime Minister Tusk rejected the idea of troop deployment, but pledged continued logistical and military support. Okay, so no troops going to Ukraine, but they will continue logistical and military support for Ukraine. So sending them weapons and also allowing to be a logistical hub, which we know Poland is a major hub for that. A lot of weapons flow into Poland and then on over to Ukraine soon after. Now from Spain, Foreign Minister Albares dismissed the idea, calling peace a distant prospect. Okay, so even the foreign minister of Spain coming out and saying that, hey, this war is not going to be ending anytime soon is kind of how I see that. And Germany, Chancellor Scholz said discussions about peacekeepers are premature. Okay, so he didn't really state too much, but I do have an update today from Sky News that he kind of did a 180. It looks like he might be open to sending troops in Ukraine, which is interesting coming from Scholz. Now it says European Union, after arriving in Paris, the head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, wrote in her social networks that Europe's security is at a critical juncture. She stressed that this concerns not only Ukraine, but the entire continent and called for an urgent strengthening of defense. Representatives from U.S. of Trump administration have made it clear that it is Europe that should assume the main financial and military support for Ukraine in the future. However, there is no clear strategy yet, and European leaders want to be at the negotiating table. Okay, so we've been hearing that Europe might not be at the negotiating table, but they want to be. Ukraine wants Europe to be at the negotiating table. They've been stating that Europe has been giving lots of weapons support to Ukraine. They should be at the negotiating table too, but we heard recently that Europe would not be there. Okay, that's what Keith Kellogg, the special envoy from the Trump administration for Ukraine, stated. So we don't know what's going to happen there, but these were some of the statements coming out from this Paris summit today. Okay, so moving on to another update now from Liskovka. Germany is ready to send its troops to Ukraine after the war, reports Sky News. The German government will support a potential peacekeeping mission if an appropriate framework is agreed upon. However, according to Chancellor Scholz, it is still too early to talk about this. Okay, so apparently he did state that he was open to sending troops to Ukraine, but I guess under an appropriate framework is what he was saying. So there probably have to be credible security guarantees to make sure Russia will never attack Ukraine again. Then that's when they'll send these troops in to guarantee Ukraine's sovereignty, okay, and protect their nation from any future attacks. Also from Vicegrad 24, after the European emergency meeting on Ukraine in Paris, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk said the European Commission will start using EU funds for strengthening Europe's military capabilities. It's very important that defense spending will no longer be treated as excessive spending. This increase in defense spending will be implemented at a national level and the EU level. The Commission will present specific proposals in the coming days on how to use common European funds for strengthening the defense and military capabilities of the EU. Okay, so we can see here, Europe definitely is starting to step up. They're talking lots about upping their defense spending and making it more, at least more appear that this spending is not excessive, that this is necessity. It's important for them to be upping their defense spending, producing more weapons. We've been hearing that a lot from this gentleman right here, the NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, and I actually have an update from him right now as well. Here's that update from Vice Grad 24, NATO Secretary General Rutte, after the European emergency meeting on Ukraine. Ready and willing, he says. That's my take from today's meeting in Paris. Europe is ready and willing to step up, to lead in providing security guarantees for Ukraine, ready and willing to invest a lot more in our security. Okay, so two major statements. Okay, they're willing to provide legitimate security guarantees for Ukraine, and at the same time, they're willing to invest a lot more in their own security, which means producing more weapons. Okay, so we should be seeing Europe turning into more of a powerhouse now in terms of military production. We've been hearing a lot as well. There's an urgent need to move to a wartime mindset, is kind of what Mark Rutte here has been stating a lot as well. So there's been a lot of talk about that, but not so much action. And it looks like Europe may have no choice now but to start implementing that action and producing weapons in multiple countries in Europe. Okay. Finally, one last thing to share with you from Volodymyr Zelenskyy, the president of Ukraine. I just had a long conversation with President of France, Emmanuel Macron, following his meeting today with other European leaders to discuss the global situation, the state of affairs in Europe, and security guarantees for Ukraine. We share a common vision. Security guarantees must be robust and reliable. Any other decision without such guarantees, such as a fragile ceasefire, would only serve as another deception by Russia and a prelude to new Russian war against Ukraine and other European nations. Emmanuel also briefed me on his talks with other leaders, not just European ones. We agreed to stay in constant contact as major decisions are being made. Ensuring a robust and lasting peace is a must, and that can only be achieved through strong security guarantees. Okay, so once again, he talks so much about strong security guarantees. We know that's a major part of this peace deal. If this thing is going to get implemented, Ukraine really wants to make sure that they're not going to be attacked ever again. But not only them, he wants to make sure that Russia doesn't attack Europe again as well. So without some sort of major U.S. backing, hopefully Europe has enough on their own to provide major security guarantees for Ukraine, but we'll have to see how things unfold. But looks like he had a good talk and a phone call today, or conversation with Emmanuel Macron, talking about this Paris summit. And I just wanted to give you guys some of these updates coming out from here and let you know what was being talked about. What did they speak about in terms of Ukraine and their own security for Europe? And just to let you know how things are flowing, okay? So I want to thank you so much for tuning in for this update. If you got something out of this, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. And with that, hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless. And we'll see you in the next one.